let me open up presenter. Where is it? Here we go. And I guess the only thing I'm dealing with this is there's a slight delay. All right, so now you should see me moving around presenter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, make this a little bit smaller. So in presenter, and again, we're just gonna have to deal with the delay on this. If I go to configure my screens, on my presenter, you should see where I have my main audience output, I have my stage display, and then I've created a third screen called Livestream. Now, what do you have on yours?
I have main audience output and stage display, but I don't even use the stage display.
Right, and I don't use it for this particular purpose also. It just defaults to being
Okay.
those two.
Okay.
So what you're going to do is you're going to add one, and you should have the option to make it your display one or a window.
My options are just window.
Okay, fine. Do it. Just select window.
Okay.
And for a label, you can call it live stream just to keep it
Mm,
consistent.
okay.
Now, underneath that,
Screen time.
once you select the window, it should be in black.
Mm-hmm.
And then you should have underneath that resolution.
Yeah.
And then your screen type should be display.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of your settings that you're going to make sure where it says show background, you're going to leave that blank. Um, Show background when Q has no foreground, you're going to check that.
Okay.
Use a solid background color, leave that one unchecked. Show foreground, you're going to check that. Overwrite foreground template, you leave that on default. And show footer, uncheck that.
Okay.
And then hit save.
So it won't allow us to do that because we only have the free account.
Okay, all right. Then let me just kind of walk you through what I got on mine then. Because that's the first thing you would do is set up another screen configuration called live stream. Let's go to scriptures. Okay. So in my scripture section, I've got option of where I can make templates. And then on the templates, I have the ones that come with it, and follow this on yours to see if you have the same thing. I've got the default, you've got the center text, and the trendy line should be the one that comes by default. So the point of all of this is, like I was saying on in my training video, is that you can create the extra screen like we were looking at in the screen configuration to where you have that live stream uh, screen with all of these. And then once you are doing that, if I go back to OBS, which now you should be able to see my OBS. Let me get some stuff out the way here. Did I create? Oh, squeezed it too much. All right, so in OBS, I would create a scene called presenter view, and in presenter, the sources that I would do is add a source, and the source is not that. cancel. Wrong one. Not that one. Yeah, there it is. All right, so I created another scene, labeled it whatever, really doesn't matter. And then I tell it in that particular scene, the source that I want to have is my window capture. And under the window capture, I would set it to look at the presenter display that I called Livestream. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now anything that I do in presenter is going to be going to the audience like it normally does, but at the same time, it's going to be sent to that live stream window. And because I'm telling OBS to capture that window, it will show up in OBS. Now, what I do is in OBS, because remember, this is what's going out to your live stream audience. This has nothing to do with what's going on in the room. In that same scene, I also disregard this lower thirds right here. But in that same scene, I also have the input for my video source. So in your particular case, it would be the input for the camera because your camera doesn't come through a switcher, it just comes straight into the Mac Mini. So that scene would have these two sources in it, plus the audio, which is the default audio coming from the system. So you would have
Mm-hmm.
these three things in that particular scene. This one on top, the window capture, the camera second, and then the audio source. But the main point, excuse me, is that these two are in this order because everything that's coming from that window capture, because of the options that you chose in presenter, it's going to make the background transparent so that
Okay.
that any text or any lower thirds that you show would be on top of the camera. So what you get, and let's see if I can do it with this one and not lose. Okay. So the effect that you're trying to get in that scene is that the lower thirds of whatever you've set up for the lower thirds is going to that scene with the video underneath it. And as you can see in that scene, that's what you would be sending to your online audience. But because of the options that you chose when you set up that display, if you picked a what's the if you picked a source of media in presenter that was not lower thirds, it would show that whole thing. Like if I pick this one in presenter, you see what comes up in OBS is the whole thing. And I need to move this out the way.
Okay, I see the whole welcome.
The whole welcome. So any of those medias, whether it's slides, pictures, whatever you choose, will come up with the whole thing on top of the picture. It's only when you pick things that need to be in the lower thirds where you get the lower thirds. Like I've created this one in Canva, and,
Mm-hmm.
and it should come up where it says join our Facebook page.
Yep, I see join our Facebook page.
Okay, so I created that in Canva, and all I did was make a little banner, type some text in there,
Mm-hmm.
gave it a background color, and made everything else transparent. And I saved it as a PNG, and then
Mm-hmm.
just put it in Presenter as a slide. So once I did that, like I said, whenever I click on that, it'll send it to OBS as a lower thirds. The audience is still going to see the full camera shot in this particular case because it's not a slide. So your audience is still going to see. Actually, in this particular case, the audience and the live stream would actually see the same thing because that background is transparent. But like if I pick my logo, let me know when you see it.
Now I can see it.
Okay. So I created that logo in Canva. Well, actually, I created that logo in, I think I created this one in Presenter. But the way I created it was I put the background with the text on top of it. So because it's stacked in Presenter, the text is actually the foreground and the design is actually the background. And because the option that we chose was to not show the background but only show the foreground, it comes up to the people online as just text on top of the camera shot.
Okay.
But what the people in the audience are going to see is going to be this right here. And I'll just go to this and this and wait for it, and you'll see what the people in the audience will see.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
you managed to. So in order to get this going at the same exact time, how do you have the audience seeing different than what the live stream is seeing?
because of the way you set your screen configurations in Presenter, it's all being done by Presenter. OBS is just staying on that one scene. And that one scene is what you're sending to your live stream audience. But in Presenter, if we go back to that,
Yeah, that's what I. Yeah, I think it'll make more sense if I see how it looks in Presenter.
okay. All right. So in Presenter, I've got all of these different slides, I guess for lack of a better term, set up on the side. But what we're doing all came from the screen configuration. So if I go back to my screen configuration, you've got your main audience output, which is set up to display one. And you, if you were in the church, that would be the same, display one. The stage display is not even being used. It's set to off. And then the live stream is set to that window. And then because of these options that we chose right here, especially this one that said, because as you can see, I've got it unselected to not show the background. So that one particular one that I had, like my HS audio,
Hmm.
if I go to here, and I know this is probably trying to play catch up, and then I go to edit this, and let me know when it catches up.
Yeah, I see the HS audio, and you have the background at the top and the words in the.
Right. So
Okay.
as you can see in the background section, all I did was select something from my media. And in the foreground section, I created this text. And that's how I made
Right.
that slide by just, putting this text on top of that background. So the
Hmm.
two together, look real nice, and that's what the audience is going to see. But
Right.
But when I go back to the configuration, we just have to remember that on the live stream, I told it not to show the background. And I told it to show the foreground. So that's why for that one particular slide, it goes to OBS and all they see is the text because the text is in the foreground, but the background is not going to be shown. But if I have a slide that is all foreground, which I can go back to presenter and just pick what's one I like. this one right here, this is a background picture, but there is no foreground. And the option that we chose was to show it if it has no foreground. So that's why when we select this in our slides, the whole thing shows to both places. It shows the whole slide to the audience and it shows the whole slide to the live stream people.
Okay, that makes sense.
So all you have to do in this particular setup is just to make sure that when you're creating stuff like I did with creating my logo, if you have anything that you've created in the past or whatever, because see, a lot of your stuff you pull from online and they're probably already complete pictures, right?
Right.
So you don't have to worry about it. You know, like I said, it'll show up in both places. But if you're making any special slides for any occasion in the past or any occasion in the future, just keep in mind that what your audience is going to see when you if you do it this way. Now, if you create a special slide in Canva and save it as a PNG, then it's going to show the whole thing, you know, because it's no different than any other media that you have. Or if you have a PowerPoint presentation, it's, you know, all one slide, so it's going to show in both places. So you don't have to worry about that. And in this particular case, there is one thing that you do have to keep in mind. In order to make this happen, OBS is filtering out mostly everything that's black. You can kind of think of it like it's a transparent background, but it's
Hmm.
kind of like filtering out the color black. And I say
Okay,
that because, like right now, you're still looking at my presenter.
I can see it.
Okay, so this is one that I got from Church Motion Graphics. Nice, pretty, you know, looks good. You can create it in Presenter and put some text on top of it and probably look pretty good. The problem is there's a whole lot of black in this particular image. So what comes out on OBS, and I'll switch to OBS.
Oh.
Yeah, doesn't look too pretty. So the audience still sees a nice, pretty moving background and all of this, that, and the other. But because there's all that black in there, OBS is trying to have a heck of a time filtering all of that, and especially because it's moving. If I had one like that, and it was because I don't think I downloaded this same background in a still shot. I think the only one that I did was with a moving shot. But let's do something like this one right here. And that one looks pretty good. There was another one that I had with some black in it. There you are. All right, so this is one that I downloaded from Church Motion Graphics, and it's not moving, but there's a whole lot of black in it.
Mm.
So you see how that affects.
You know, I never paid attention to that issue before.
Hmm. So that's something to keep in mind when it comes to which ones you're picking. And then, like, this is one that I just created, and I just set it up to simulate if I was getting the scriptures in advance, and
Hmm.
I wanted the people in the audience to see a nice, pretty background with the scriptures on top, but the audience sees only I'm sorry, the online people see the just the text. But if I go back to show you what I set up in Presenter, you'll see that when I set it up in presenter, I chose the nice, pretty background. So what the people in the congregation are seeing is something like this. Now my
So I see the background, right?
uh
So the congregation sees the colorful background
with the scripture,
with with the scripture,
but
but
the
the live stream is only going to see the just the scripture.
yes, the lower thirds. Whereas my particular lower thirds are not so low, but you know, I think at the time I created this was a church that had a lot of older congregation, and therefore what they needed to see was the text a little larger.
Hmm.
All right, where did I go with this? Oh, I went to the wrong one. Why are you seeing a black screen? Oh, never mind. I was supposed to go to OBS. Okay. All right, and then one last thing. So that's what the people are seeing in OBS. Um, you also have what people see on the fly. All right, so if you have a scripture that you need to pull on the fly, you can see that I've already set by default in presenter that whenever I pull up scriptures on the fly, this is the default background I want to choose. Not the nicest thing, but you know,
Hmm.
it's just so that when I have to quickly pull up a scripture, it's got a background behind it and not just necessarily be just text. But still in OBS, the people in OBS are still only going to see the lower thirds. Make sense?
So in presenter, I can't figure out how to let me pull that back up. On the live stream portion,
Mm-hmm.
if the background it said I have it the same way you had it set up. So show background when Q has no foreground. So
Mm-hmm.
the let me go to scene, go to a scripture. So it's saying if it does not have a foreground, which is the top part,
Mm-hmm.
show background when Q has no foreground. So if it doesn't have a foreground, it's just going to show whatever the background is.
Correct.
If but I don't have it to show background at all. And if there is a foreground, it's just going to show the foreground and not the background.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, and there's one other thing. When you create that third screen configuration,
Hmm.
it shows up as you selected a window. That is actually a pop-up window. Um, I'll show it to you on mine, and you should have had it come up the same thing on yours. Let's see here. Is it this one? Yep, that's it. So right now you should just see a little black screen with the lower thirds.
Yes.
And it's probably clipped a little bit as far as what you can see. I don't think you can see the dots, whatever. But anyway, I said that to say that that is a little pop-up window that just pops up as a third window when presenter is open. So it's one more thing for you to have open on your screen. Now it can be in the background. It does not have to be in the foreground.
Mhm.
You can keep using presenter, you can click over to OBS. What you don't want to do is minimize it, because when you minimize it, it's no longer active, and then OBS can't see it. I learned that the
Oh.
hard way too. So you can move it around,
Oh, because it's an actual window that you
that
created as a
OBS is
source in
looking for.
OBS.
Exactly. And
Okay.
OBS is looking for it. So if you minimize it, then OBS can't find it.
Okay.
Uh,
So, like in church, I keep it as like I have it going across the whole entire screen. If I were to utilize this format, I would actually need to make it a true lower third for it to make sense on like somebody's mobile phone or they're watching it on a computer at home, since they would be seeing the person reading the scripture instead of the background.
well, it's all a matter of what you set, because um, all right, I need to show you what I'm looking at here. So I need to go here and go back to there. Okay. Let me see, where was it that I said that?
Like you looking for the size of the how big your scripture is.
No, not how big my scripture is. What I was looking for is how I told it to be different, from what the audience sees. In other words,
Mm-hmm.
if I choose, what was it? This one right here. As you can see, the audience sees a background, and they see the text almost in the center of that background.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the online people see it as a lower thirds. And
Oh,
but like I said, you don't necessarily have to have it as a lower thirds. You can have it the same. Um, just know that the online people are going to see the text on top of the camera shot. So
right.
you
So that
typically,
no, yeah, would make sense to make it a lower third.
exactly. That's why you make it a lower third, because you still got the camera shot in the background. Now, you don't have to do that. I mean, if you want it to default to be the same thing, then what the online people will see is the text in the center on top of the background screen, just like the audience is seeing the text in the center, but it's just going to be the audience is seeing it on top of a pretty background.
Hmm.
Okay.
I
And
wonder if it's that override foreground template,
um,
but yours was set to default.
yeah, mine was set to default, so I'm trying to figure out where I picked that. Um, there was some place that I chose to say that my window display gets text in a lower third, and I'm trying to figure out where I set that at. Um,
Um,
let's see here. Yeah, see, on the slides itself, I have it set as center text,
hmm.
but that's not what I want. I thought it was under configuration. And if I go back to my live stream, I don't know why. Well, maybe my default is lower third. Let's check that. Maybe that's why. Maybe it's because my default, I've set my default to be lower thirds. And to find that, I need to go here. Um, I know how to find it in scriptures. If I go to edit, yeah, that's what it is. And let me know if you when you get to it, if it's up on your.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so under my templates, I have a center text. I have the default. I have a lower thirds, which in my particular case, I edited it so that the lower thirds is in a box. And
Mm-hmm.
then I've got this one called Trendy Line, which I think the ones that it comes with by default are Trendy Line, Default, and Center Text. Just like you, I created this one called Lower Thirds. But you can change any one of them. See this?
Right.
Because see, this one is called Center Text, but it doesn't necessarily have to be here. I can move it to the left, to the right. I can change the text size and whole 9 yards. And then when I save it, even though the title says center text, it's going to be whatever I saved it as. So the same thing with my default. I've changed my default to be down at the bottom.
Okay.
So we were correct when we were saying that if we go back to my configuration, when we create this live stream right here, where it says override foreground text, that's where you would pick your lower thirds.
So how does your lower thirds look for like one of those
You
that
you
has like
broke
a
up on me
long scripture?
when it's a very
How did
long.
I was asking how does it, yeah, like when it's a real long one with it being showing up as a lower third and for the live stream,
I can show
does it
you.
condense it all?
No, it doesn't. It will move it up.
Oh, okay.
Like if I go back to this one, just say I picked this part of Romans where there's a lot of text. You with me?
Now I can see it. Yep.
Okay. So in this one, I picked a slide that has a lot of text on it, and what the audience is going to see is this, and what the people in OBS are going to see is this.
Okay. That's still not bad.
Hmm. And since you brought that subject up, you just made me think about something. Um, you might want to create your lower thirds to not be too far at the bottom, only because some people might be looking at your stream on a tiny device.
Hmm.
So, in some cases, it might even be better if we just make it always in the middle. You know, I mean, they can still see, and we're talking about the online people, they can still see the camera shot in the background. Um, so they get a general sense of what's going on in the sanctuary, but what you really want them to be focusing their attention on is the text that you're trying to show them, whether that's scripture or an announcement or whatever. So you keep that in mind when you're designing it or thinking about what the audience is seeing, because it doesn't always need to be pushed so far at the bottom. If I was looking at
Right.
your stream on my phone and you get some of those scriptures that have, let's just say, yeah, see, I don't have mine pushed down too far. Let's try one like this right here. Yeah, my lower thirds for my online viewers. And I think it also has something to do with the fact that I also have um, um, the book and the chapter and the verse.
Hmm. Right. Yeah, that makes a difference.
So that pushes the text up some so that, it's almost still centered. And people do want to see that. If that hasn't been said to you before, people do want to see that. So once you get the hang of all of this and the difference of what the people see online and what the people see in the sanctuary, now the question is, when there's nothing going in the sanctuary where the people don't necessarily need to see, um, how am I want to word this? They don't need to see the camera shot, unless it's like a camera shot on the person that's preaching. In other words, you can set this up now to where you can always have like a static logo or something showing on the screens in the sanctuary, so that the people are not distracted by looking at themselves on the TVs while they're in the sanctuary. Their focus will be on the speaker and the preaching.
Hmm.
The online people can still see the congregation and whatever, but and it makes it nicer that the online people, because in some of your shots, the TVs are seen in that shot. And therefore, that's when you get that repeat effect, because the online people are seeing the camera shot and then they're seeing the camera shot on the TVs, and it's just an echo and a repeat, a repeat, a repeat. So now you can find a nice, pretty design that can be that static shot that's your go to shot that the sanctuary will sit on, but the online people will still be watching your stream. Now, the question is, what is that shot that you can do that and it not be something that overwrites the camera shot on OBS? Now, there's two ways you can do that. Um, what you could do is, let's just say, let me find something. Okay, so let's just say service is getting ready to start, and this is my um, shot that I want the be on the screens in the sanctuary. And let me know when you see welcome on the screen.
I can see it.
Okay, so now what I might do, okay, so I'm already on OBS. Let me go to my OBS. And you see my mouse?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I might do is, so that the online people can see the sanctuary and the people in the sanctuary just see welcome, at some point in time now. And of course, I'm just using this as an example of what, let's just say when the speaker is speaking. And I want something else on the screen besides the audience shot. What I can do in OBS is, all I have to do is come in here and just turn off that Windows capture.
So that would mean the OBS is just putting out the audience,
The
just the
cat,
camera,
exactly,
and then
but
presenter is still shooting to the audience inside the church.
correct.
Okay.
And then that's the quick and dirty and easy way to do it. Now, the other way to do it is just to design something that, would look good maybe on top of the audience shots, like maybe something like maybe the AME Zion logo or something like that in the center
Hmm.
on top of the camera shot.
Hmm.
That's when my camera went out of focus all of a sudden. Any day now. Gotta love these webcams. I'm still trying to get me a nice camera that I can use and then have multiple shots in the future. But anyway, that's a quick and dirty way to do it. So long as it's not too much work for you, um, you can do it that way. Now, also, and this is the last thing, and I guess we're done. All right, there we go. Learning a little bit about my webcam here. I don't typically keep it on autofocus. Sorry, so now you should see all of this on the laptop. This little guy. All right, this little Stream Deck thing here. Can you see that on your screen?
Yes, I can see that.
Okay. Have you ever seen one of these or used one of these?
I've seen them. I'm interested in them, but no, I haven't gotten a chance to use one yet.
Okay. It comes in a 6 button. The one that I have is the 15 button, and then the big one, the XL, is the 32 button. Most people will say the 15 button is the one that's right, is the happy medium. It runs about 125, because I think the 6 button is like $80 or something like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what your budget's like, if you can stretch a little bit, you can do more with the 15 button. But it's a nice little gadget. I've been wanting one for a while, and then I finally pulled the trigger and got it. Because even with the 6 button, you can set it up to use like 5 buttons, and then set the 6 button to be page number 2, and then use 5 more buttons on the next page underneath, and you can have an unlimited number of pages. So you can kind of work around with it. But I can use mine, and this is where I would take advantage of having a separate webcam to do over the shoulder camera shot. I use mine to actually set up when I have my scenes. I can just set a button to go forward and backward in my scenes. So, and you can use it to control presenter. You can use it to control OBS. You can use it to control your operating system in general.
Mm-hmm.
Because like mine on the home page, I've got it to where it sits right here on my right hand side, and I can actually use it to just yeah, I can do this. Let me move this out of the way. Yeah, there you go. So let's see here. So I use it to open up applications where I don't have to run the mouse all over the screen to click around
Right.
and open up applications. But on the next page, which that page I haven't set up, when I'm using this Ecamm software and I'm running a training video, I've got it set up to where this goes forward and backward in my scenes. I've got it to where I can do sound effects. I can turn my mic on and off. I have one button I can push that I can go live.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do get to a point to where you're trying to program all of this stuff and you want it to be convenient, you can actually get it something like the Stream Deck, and then all the setting up takes a minute, but then your normal operation from Sunday to Sunday would just be pushing a button, pushing a button, pushing a
Right.
button. So,
Because then
eh,
I would be able to use that instead of clicking the NDI at the top to change the different
exactly.
camera views and whatnot.
Yep. And it literally, it basically, the way it's been described, and I think I've seen in the past, is that the Stream Deck is nothing but a mouse, but
Right.
it's just a programmable mouse. So you've
Mm-hmm.
set the buttons to click things, do things, hotkeys. I can use it and program it to do a F6 or your F keys. You know, Pretty much anything you can do with your mouse, you can do with the Stream Deck. So it makes your workflow a whole lot easier. So,
Right.
and I haven't tried it yet, but I think you can also move it from one system to another. So, like if you got one and you use it at home, just like when you bring the Mac Mini home, bring the Stream Deck with you, and then when you take it back to the church, take it to the church, and
Mm-hmm.
you've got it to where you can use it in both places, and it just works great. So that's
Yeah,
it.
those are nice.
Love it, love it, love it. That's all I got. So
Okay.
I appreciate your time and your patience.